Hey guys, welcome to Drawing with Abby. In this video, we're going to be doing a drawing video using HiPaint on my Samsung S23. Now, HiPaint is a relatively new app that's famous for mirroring the exact same interface and tools that you find in Procreate. I've never used Procreate. I currently don't own an iPad that uses the Apple Pencil. So this would actually be my first time using both HiPaint and, in a way, Procreate at the same time. So let's get at it. So I'm first going to start off using my phone. I'm using a Samsung Ultra S23 device. And you can see here, I'm just quickly blocking off my sketch here. Now, one of the things that you're not going to see is all of the interfaces that HiPaint is famous for ripping off of Procreate. It's just the screen capture or the recording capture doesn't capture any of that. And I do have a few issues with the recording capture for HiPaint, and I'll probably talk about that another time. But the overall, in terms of the brush selections for HiPaint, I actually really like it in terms of the pencil brushes. I thought each pencil brush that I tried out felt great. They had a nice softness to them, a great sketchy quality to them, and I was able to quickly work out my shapes, and it wasn't feel like I was fighting against the brushes in any way. I find that for most drawing apps outside of Clip Studio Paint, most of the times the sketching tools, I usually have to figure out some workarounds with the brushes. Like for instance, in Infinite Painter, I use the soft pen brush, but here I'm using the pencil brush every step of the way, and it's been great. Now you can see the aspect ratio for the drawing has changed all of a sudden, and that's because when I started using the inking brushes in HiPaint, for whatever reason, it was looking really soft, and I tried a bunch of different pens. So my assumption was at that point is that I set up my document wrong initially, and so I created a new document. I upped the resolution for it, thinking maybe the low resolution in my previous document made all the inking tools look really soft. But even when I upped my document resolution, it really didn't work out. It was sort of the same either way. So that's just an inherent thing about the inking tools in the app. It's just something to be mindful of. I don't think Procreate itself is a lot like this, and that's probably one of the things that I'm learning. And I'm just going off of my assumptions of seeing Procreate being used on things like TikTok or on YouTube. I haven't really used Procreate before, so comparing this app to Procreate is just really based off of what I've seen on other videos, and I can tell that while the interface mirrors Procreate exactly, the brush engines and the brushes themselves look like they perform very differently. And I'm still experimenting to understand if all of those gesture shortcuts or some of the tools that Procreate has sort of built in has translated over to this app so far. What I've seen and what I've experienced with the app, yes, in some cases, no, in others. So I'm still trying to work that out. But despite that, I was able to get my inks back on track by switching between some of the inking tools and then as well as some of the brushes and charcoal brushes within HiPaint. And I was able to get sort of a textured look for things like the leather area of Zatanna here, but then rely on the inking tools for more, singular focused line art with very thin finesse lines. So here I'm using the cloud brush as a way to add some backgrounds to this really quickly. One of the things I'm trying to do in my art is try to add a sense of context with my illustrations. So in the past, I've been very guilty of creating figures just in a white void or without much context to them. They're just more like the figure drawings rather than an actual illustration. So I'm trying to always add a little hint of a background. But background drawings and prop drawings is definitely a weakness of mine, so I'm trying to push myself to try and include that more. So here you can see just a little bit of hint of that. Another weak area is colors. So what you'll see me do here is I'll often experiment with different color schemes or tried to be more critical in thinking about my color schemes. In here, I'm trying to use sort of a tricolor theme of yellow, purple, and green. Swapping out the yellow for orange is what you would normally see for like villain-esque type color schemes. But here I was trying to go for more of a Halloween vibe, so I use yellow to sort of bring that out. And so here's the final drawing. I think it turned out okay as my first attempt with using HiPaint, but I wanted to give it another go. One of the things about the screen recorder is that it speeds up that drawing incredibly fast. That is by no means my natural drawing speed. So I wanted to switch over to my Tab S6 and have another go at drawing within HiPaint. So again, with the screen recorder, you can't really see the interface, but this is probably the interface that people are most familiar with when it comes to looking at Procreate, because most people are using Procreate on an iPad situation rather than a phone. So here in the Samsung Tab S6, exact same layout, same brush experience that I had on the phone is here on the Tab. Again, using the pencil brushes has been fantastic. Really enjoy that. Probably some of the best sketching experience I've had on any of the Android apps that I played with so far. So if you're looking just to mess around and do some sketching without really getting too much into inks or too much rendering, I think HiPaint is fantastic. So here you can see I'm just adding a little bit more of a composition this time around. Trying to add a little bit of emotion, a little bit of storytelling context. So I have a foreboding head in the foreground, and then we have a slightly wounded Wolverine grimacing as he tries to stand tough. Inking here I felt a little bit better on the Tab S6. I don't know if that's because I was using my Wacom 1 pen with my tablet, or if maybe there was a difference in the app itself, but it did feel a lot better. The inks did look a little bit more crisp, which is surprising because my phone has a higher pixel density on this screen, so you would figure that would look sharper, but for some reason it did look better here, so that's something I wanted to note. But again, when it comes to inking and rendering, I was switching up between using the inking pens in HiPaint, and then also switching over and using some of the brush tools. There's some charcoal brushes I use. There's some paint brushes that I use to add some fine detail or to add some more soft rendering to the inks, which is something that I've been experimenting more with. Adding that sort of soft rendering is something that with digital inking gives you a lot of opportunities, opens up a lot of options. So I've just been experimenting with that. Color scheme, I wanted to keep things a little warm. I love Wolverine's orange and brown suit, so this is sort of a play on that design, but using that same color scheme. And I wanted to use some of the splatter effects in HiPaint, but it turned out to be pretty awful to use. So I ended up just sort of manually drawing in some of that blood splatter. And then for the backgrounds, I quickly just wanted to paint something in. So I grabbed some of the paintbrush tools. Those were pretty good. I did not see a blending option, unfortunately. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot for that, but because of that, I sort of kept the background simple and just sort of did blocky shapes with that. And here's how the final illustration turned out. I thought this was a better experience than drawing on my phone, and maybe that's because the Procreate or HiPaint is better optimized for the tablet experience. But I did notice that I enjoyed drawing the app a lot better on my Tab S6 than I did on my Samsung phone. For my first time using HiPaint, I think it went pretty okay. If you guys have any questions about the app or anything that you saw me do, please leave a question in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that sub button. Until next time, keep drawing.